All right, good afternoon. It is 12:05 and waiting for anybody to jump on, but let's go over what we're going to do today. I sent you 2 emails today, and first I'm going to go through the second one. I went online, and to my knowledge, I have graded all work that has been done by any student in this class up to this point. Now, you may disagree with that, which of course is your right. So please, as it says there in that second sentence, look through your grades on Inside Rankin. If you think you've turned in something that has not yet been graded, please let me know as soon as you can. Now, before I go through the rest of this, when you are working on the case study, all right, and you want to turn in part of it, please let me know what chapter that is. And I don't know the best way to do that. I don't really even know. All right, but if you can, let me know. All right, good afternoon, John. I just was starting up and I said, this morning I went on and I believe I have everything graded that has been turned in to this point for this class. And what I just mentioned was if you think you've got something you've turned in that I have not yet graded, then please just email me and let me know as soon as possible. Also, when you are working on your case study, and if you're turning in an assignment for that case study, people are just calling them case study, case study, case study. If you've got some way to annotate it, let me know. If nothing else, put a comment at the top of the program or whatever and let me know. I'd appreciate that. So all of the work through chapter 9 should have been turned in already. So that was all due, by the end of last week. If you've, any work now that you turned in late, you're going to get a points off penalty. So like I said, I believe I'm totally caught up. This weekend by Sunday, the chapter 10 and 11 work should be turned in. Some of you have turned that in already, and I've tried, like I said, to go in and grade that. The hope is today we're going to finish this updated trip log app. All right, and we'll see how long that takes us. We'll quickly, if there's time, talk about what we're going to do in chapter 13, which will take up all next week. All right, I'm guessing I'm going to lecture every day next week, probably for a couple of hours a day. So we've gone over all of chapter 13. We'll just see how it goes. Maybe we won't need that much time. Maybe we'll need more, but this is the first time that they are giving us in the book a complete program. And I'm trying to take what they have and meld it into the database that I have given you. We may start all over again. I don't know. All right. So that'll be next week. And if we do complete all that, then the following week, I want to go through chapters 14 and 15. I believe I've mentioned this already, but if I have not, all right, there'll be no homework assigned for chapters 14 and 15. There'll be no labs assigned for chapter 14 and 15. All I will ask that you do are the written tests for chapters 14 and 15. If we can get to that point by that day, we're sitting really good as far as being able, because we got left is 15, 16, and 17 there. I'm sorry, 16 and 17 then. 16 we're going to go over. You will get an assignment, you will get homework, you will get labs, you will get a written test. And 17, we're trying to bring this thing into Azure. Now maybe I've told you this already, I've sent emails off to Microsoft technical support, because every single time I've watched, and I probably have watched a half dozen different videos that are out there on how to go and put things out into Azure, which basically is the equivalent of putting our stuff out onto the internet. And all of them say that you need a credit card in order to set up your account. I'm trying to see if we can circumvent that. All right. So let's get started. And with the stuff for today, there's the letter I wrote. So and that's the second one really that I've written. But for today, as it says, we're going to continue going over the chapter 12 updated trips app. Tomorrow will be lab and 13 all next week. Okay, nothing new there. And again, your 10 and 11 homework is due this weekend. Some of you have turned in that homework already. You've either turned in the home, when I say homework too, this is stupid because it's not just homework. When I say homework, I mean homework, I mean labs, I mean written tests. All that stuff is due this weekend. So everything that's assigned for 10 and 11 is due this weekend. Everything that's assigned for 12 and 13 will be due 2 weeks from this weekend. All right, I'm just going to leave it at that. All right, now when I went through this yesterday, trying to find out where my errors were, I found some. So I want to show you what those errors are. In fact, if you look right now on mine, I have a boatload of non-nullable, but they're all warnings. In other words, all of my errors are gone. So I will show you what I have done. After I show you what I have done, I am going to again try to bring up the NuGet Package Manager console and see if it's possible that I can do an add migration, all right, and I can do an update database. I hope to heck that it works this time, but we'll see regardless. All right, so as far as what I have had, what I did change, there was nothing in here. But first, in this trip model, this was the biggest change. This got rid of almost every error. So if you would go into tripviewmodels.cs and line 8 on mine, it could be 7, it could be more or less on yours. What we had in here was public trip view data model trip. It should have just been public trip. That's why I was getting all those errors, that it wasn't recognizing things. So you'll have to change that right there. I'm not saying that's going to remove every error you have, because there's another thing that you have to add in just a little bit. All right, but that is the first thing that I had to go in and change. Next, in the manage controllers, and I believe there was just the one error at the bottom of the screen, but again, I could be mistaken. That is down here, way down at the very bottom. All right, down here, I believe this was activity, and it had to be activities. All right, you can see when you're working with this stuff, just how easy it is when you use the singular version of something when you should use the plural, or vice versa, how easy it is to screw it up. I think it's that one that I had to change. All right, I believe that one was already activities. Maybe I've got it reversed. I don't know. Okay, but what I'm going to try to do then, oh, also, I'm sorry, mention this. I had to put 2 using statements at the top of my program.cs file. All right, I had to put both those there. This using Microsoft.entity framework core, and the using updated trip log .models.data access. All right, why? Because otherwise it was telling me, it was giving me unrecognizable errors for the use SQL server. Okay, so what I'm going to do in just a second is, again, I'm going to try to bring up the package manager console. Okay, and I'm going to see if I can do an add migration, and if I can, I'm going to do an update database. Then I'm going to quickly go back, and I'm going to, right in front of your very eyes, I guess, create a repo, and I'm going to throw all this stuff out there. So if you need it, you'll be able to work with it. All right, so let me just do a file save all to begin with. And I hope against hope here that this is now going to work, but we'll see. All right, you saw this is from yesterday when the build failed. So I'm trying it again here. Now, no database provider has been configured for this, provider can be configured by overriding, okay, or by using add DB context. If add DB context is being used, then also ensure that your DB context type accepts this. Now, I've never seen that error before, so I will have to look it up. Before I try to even do an update database, though, I'm going to come in here and do a view, and I'm going to go to my Server Explorer here, and I want to see if it did make a database. Because if it didn't, there's no use in running an update database. In fact, if I look over here, it doesn't look very promising right now because I do not see a migrations folder in here. All right. So my guess is it probably again wasn't made. Now, there could be various reasons for that, and we'll look at those in just a bit. So databases. And I've got a trips, but I don't have a trips log too. So evidently it didn't work. All right, that isn't good news. But I want to go on anyway, and I want to start to create I want to go in and I want to create um, the view files for this program. Okay, so we're going to do that right now. Now, the bad news is I'm working with two machines here, and one of my machines, it just powered down. So let me power it back up again. On power, I've been running on battery. So hopefully it'll work now. All right. So there are 5 files that we are concerned with creating today. All right. Yesterday, we went into our controllers and we added code to our home controller. Then we created a manage controllers and we created a trip controller. All right. So what I want to do today is to work with those associated view files. The only thing we've got under views right now for those is the home one. So I'm going to do that first. Then I'm going to come in and create another folder under views called manage and create a couple files in there. Then I'll create another folder under views called trip, and we'll put in a couple files in there. And at that time, we'll see where we are time-wise in class. So I'm going to come in here, and in this index file, this is just the old generic index file that we always get by default. So I'm going to highlight all of it and remove it. And I'm going to start typing myself. And there's about 55 or so lines in here. So you're going to watch me type, and hopefully you're going to type along with me. Again, I am right now in the home folder and in the index.cshtml file in my home folder. All right. Okay. So I've got this model I enumerable. I'm not going to worry about it right now that it's giving me an error. Let's just get going. All right. So we're setting the title there to my trip log. Put this on a new line. Okay. And then we're going to make a table, and that table is going to take up the rest of this file. All right, so let's get started on that. Here it says, oh, we don't need a sum. Saying that it expects here a semicolon, but we don't put a semicolon there. Enumerable. No, I'm just going to get rid of that, bring it back. Hopefully it'll work its way out. We'll see. All right, so again, we are creating a table here. As always, we start out with a T head, which contains a row which has our headings in it. All right, so that's what we have so far. That's what's going to go into our head area. It'll just be a blank line there. So we've got a heading for the destination, a heading for the start date, a heading for the end date, a heading for the accommodations, a heading for things to do, and then a blank line. And that, if we go back to here, that's going to correspond to destination, start date, end date, accommodations, things to do, and this is the blank that we put in there at the end. So this is what we're building right now. All right. So underneath that, we're going to put in our body. Okay. And in that body, we're going to have a few things, but basically, since we're going to have at least the possibility of having several trips in here, we're going to put this inside of a for each loop. All right. Not only that, when we get to our activities, that'll be a for each loop inside of this for each loop that we're creating right now. All right, so let me move this up. Okay, so far when you look in there, we've got what? We've got the name, we've got the start date, and we've got the end date. Again, going back, and I like to do this so you can tell exactly what I'm working on. We now, as we go through here, we have this stuff. All right. But what's next? We're going to need to basically get that into a loop as well, at least this, we'll need a loop for our or we'll need something for our accommodations. And first of all, remember that can be null. So if it's null, there's nothing we want to put in there. All right. But if it's not null, then remember what can be put in there, because you can see it right here. The name of the hotel or whatever it is. All right. The phone number and the email. All right. And when you put those in, the phone number and the email, all right, both of those can be null. So we have to worry about that. All right, so we're going to do that now. Then we're going to come back and take a look at this right here. Again, this should make sense to you now, in that what we're saying right here, okay, what we're saying right here is that if it's not null, that means something has been put into this accommodation field. All right. So that'll be the name. All right. That if it's expected that if we put something into the accommodation field, that we do put a name in there. All right. But the other two things, again, the email or the phone number and the email are both um, they're both optional. Okay. So we're going to put if statements in here. All right, so that'll handle the first one. The second one is the same thing. I just want to go in here and replace in here. I'm sorry, inside of here. So I want to copy that, and I want to change it from phone to email. All right, so let's fix this up a little bit. Just like that. All right, now I'm hoping at least by this point that that makes sense to you. All right, so again, we want to put in for each one of these trips, we want to put in a destination, a start date, and an end date. Remember, the accommodation is optional. If we do put something in there, it's expected at a minimum, we put in a name. All right. But we can put in just a name and a phone number, or a name and a phone number and an email, or I believe just a name and an email. So there's a lot of different permutations or combinations, etc., that you can use here. All right. All right. Now, the other thing that's left then is the actual activities that we're going to do. All right. And remember, this entire thing, again, is optional. All right. So we are going to add one more table data line in here. We're going to put in another for each, because there can be multiple activities in here. All right. So inside of here now, I'm going to put in a div. And that'll handle all of the activities. All right. So when we take a look back here now, whoops, wrong one. We have now built this whole thing in here. The only thing we have not added are the delete buttons for each one of these. All right. Now remember, we are inside of a for each loop. One thing we just put in that for each loop was another for each loop, but we're still inside of this for each loop. The reason I'm mentioning that is when I come back in here, because there's really one more table data line that we want, and that is going to be the thing that's going to add for us those delete buttons. All right. Don't worry, we're getting the error now because we're not closing our button tag yet. We will at the end of this. Okay. And that is it right there. That is it for our first of 5 view files that we're creating. So taking it from the top. All right, I've already shown you this, but we're building this right now. All right, so we came in, set the IEnumerable. The error did go away on here. All right, to type trip. We're setting our title to my trip log. And again, that is in accordance with this. Okay. And then we're coming in and we've got a thing in here that says add trip. And that is this right there. All right. Then next, we've got our table. And I've already gone through that, so I'm not going to buzz back to the other, to the PDF. But you can see we've got our 5 heading lines in there and then a blank because we're not putting in a heading for our to-do button. Then we put in a for each loop. We don't know how many trips we have in here. All right. And we've got in this for each loop, every trip must have a destination, must have a start date, must have an end date. But that's all it's required to have. So that's these 3 things right here. And then we come down to our optional things. And we say, if there is something in the accommodation, at a minimum, we put the name in there like that. All right. And then we check to see if they have a phone number and or an email. And that's what these 2 add-if statements in here are. All right. Then we come in and we're actually putting in, for lack of better words, all right, the trip data. Again, we don't know in here, I'm sorry, the trip data activity. We don't know how many activities we're going to have. So as you can see, again, this is put into its own for each loop. All right. And then finally at the bottom here, we have our button. So that's the first one. Okay. All right. So next I'm going to go in here and do a file, save all. I'm also going to take a quick look up here. I know we've got that, but I'm going to close this. And it looks like at least I have no errors. So that file went in clean. Again, I'll look later about trying to get rid of some, most, or all of these warnings, but there are no errors. So that's a good sign. So that's first thing. All right. Then next, I'm going to come in here. And for now, at least, I'm going to close this file. In fact, I'm going to close everything that I've got open. All right. Everything. There we go. And I'm going to come into my views folder and I'm going to add another folder here. And that next folder that I'm going to add is going to be called manage. Okay. And when you look in here, well, what do we have in here next? We've got this add trip activities, and then we've got the manage page. Okay, so let's not do it in that order. All right. What do I mean? I mean that next, let's come in here and let's create our trip add and our, well, really it's trip to add the information in. Okay. Probably is a little bit easier to do these next. I don't think it's really going to matter in the end anyway. So I'm going to come in here into views and I'm going to right mouse click and add a new folder under views. And that new folder will be called trip. And I guess why I'm at it, I might as well add another folder under views and that's called manage. All right. So I now have two new folders under here. Close that. We've got that one done. So I now have underneath views, home, manage, shared, and trip. We're all done with home. I don't think I sometimes when I get rid of this privacy thing that's in here, it gives me errors. We're not using it for anything, so I should be able to get rid of it, but I'm just going to leave it there. All right. I'm not using it, like I said, for anything. So under home, we just finished our index. We just set that one up. So I'm going to close that and I'm going to go in. And like I said, it shouldn't matter the order in which we put these. All right. So I'm going to go into trip right here. And under trip, we're going to have two files that we put in, an add1 and an add2. Okay. So I'm going to come into trip, right mouse click or click on there and choose add. We're going to put in a new view. It'll be a razor view empty. And this first one will be add one. Try that again. Add one.cs HTML. All right. And I guess while I'm at it, I might as well just add the other one. So again, I'm going to add another view. Again, it's going to be an empty view. And this one is going to be called add2.cs HTML. They look identical right now. All right. But I'm going to start with add one. And I'm going to start by removing everything that's in here. And we're going to type a little bit. There's about 45 lines or so to put in here. And then the next one that we type in is shorter. It's about half that size. So let's put this stuff in here. And when we get done, hopefully at least, or probably it'll be time for a break. Then we'll come back and we'll look at the ones for manage. All right, so I am in add1.cs HTML. All right, so we've got add trip page one for our title. We've got a subheader of add trip destination and dates. And if we go back into here, all right, there's our add trip destination and dates right there. All right, so this is what we're setting up in here right now. Okay, all right. Now this is an empty div that we can use to hold any errors that we might encounter as we're doing this. You should know by now what a validation summary is. Okay, so we're going to hold all of it there, so it automatically is going to go to the top of the page or near the top of the page, and it'll be in red because we got a class of text danger. At least there's a good chance that it'll be in there. All right, and what are we going to put in here? We're going to add a form. All right, and that's all we're going to have in here is a fairly big form. All right, and in there, now you'll notice a couple things here. All right, whoops, let me close that. Sorry. The first thing to notice here is that is hidden. All right. And the reason that it's hidden is we don't need to show it, but it works in conjunction with some of the code that we added yesterday that hopefully you will remember from yesterday that we did a bunch of code where we checked to see if you were on page 1 or you were on page 2. So that's what we're working with in here. All right. And you'll notice, all right, for this add, we're going to have a destination and we're going to have an accommodation. So when we look in here, all right, there's going to be our destination stuff right there. You'll notice it's got a drop down list. This will be our accommodation stuff. And again, it's got a drop down list. And then we will have to add, these are just text boxes, a start date and an end date, and everything has a label, as you can see. And finally, we'll end up with these two buttons. All right, the next button and the cancel button. So that's what we're building right now. All right. Move this over just a bit. And this is going to say manage destination. Yes, it's pluralized. So manage destinations. All right, and you can see too that it is it is set up basically as a link. So again, that manage destinations is this that we just put in. Okay. Then we'll have a drop down list. Again, the idea behind one of the ideas behind this particular exercise is we want to take what we had done before, that being the original Trips app that was in chapter 8, and everything that we put in there for input was set up with text boxes. Now we're using drop down lists because we've gone over that material. Plus, it makes a lot more sense to let the user be able to add things into a drop down, modify things, or add, remove, but pick something from a drop down list. All right, so 4 equals Okay. And as you take a look at that, then we're not done. All right, because before this select, I want to put my options in there. So we are building in here the select or our drop down list. And we're just setting it whatever was at the beginning. Okay, so that's the first one. And the second one is going to be very similar. So again, I'm going to do some copy and pasting. All right, but I'll give you a second to key that stuff in. I'll wait a couple minutes here. All right, so let me come in. I don't know how I got that there, but it's gone now. You hit enter here, and I'm going to copy this whole thing down, including the blank line, and I'm going to paste it back in. So now I have two things that are identical. The first one I'm going to keep. The second one I have to change my names in here. All right, so this will be our, instead of our destination ID, this will be our accommodation ID. And this will say accommodations. In fact, that should have said, I believe, where I put destination. Yeah, I guess that's right. So this will say accommodations. Like that. All right. And again, ASP action is index. The controller will still be manage. We'll have this, but instead of manage destinations, it will be manage accommodations. All right. And again, we'll have a select, but it'll be trip.accommodation ID. And we're going to have another select list. But again, from in here, we're going to be, instead of a destinations, it'll be accommodations. All right. And it'll be accommodation ID and name. Like that. And the option, the thing that's in there, value equals 0. Again, we'll just start it at the beginning. All right. So again, what that one did was that just built this one. Everything that you see in here, that's what we just put in. So we need to come in and add a label, a label for the start date, and then our start date, a label for our end date, and then our end date. Turn off my phone. I didn't realize it was still on. There, it's muted. And then our two buttons. So that's what's left in this one here. So let's put that in right now. So after this second div that we just put in, we're going to put in another div. But these are going to both be very similar, but shorter, because they'll be the exact same thing, except one is going to say start date and the other one is going to say end date. So again, I'll put in the one for the start date, copy it down. So we'll have the one for the end date. And so that's the first one. And like I said, I'm just going to take this all, copy it down, and this will become end date. So will this, and so will this. All right. And the only thing that's left is to create our buttons. So let's do that. And we don't need to say form group or anything. We just put it inside of a div. There's the first one. Okay. Now I'm looking and it looks like it's flagged a couple things. Oh, it did, but I think it's because I hadn't finished. Let me check real quick. Okay, I still don't have any errors, and that's good. Okay, so I'll leave that up for just a moment, and then we'll go in and we will do our page 2. Very short, like about 20 to 25 lines. Once we finish that one, then we're going to take a break. And after the break, we're going to go in and add under our manage, we're going to add a couple more view files. After we get done with that, I'm going to quickly walk you through chapter 13 so that you can see everything that we are going to do with it. Now, it is my responsibility then, and what I mean is I'm going to have to go back and check every one of my files. I know I'm going to go back into the into my data models folder, and I'm probably going to end up putting some question marks before some of the fields. That should get rid of a lot of these, hopefully, a lot of these nullable things that are in here. All right, but I have to find out why this isn't working. Right now, it's missing something. Ideally, it's missing something that isn't going to be hard to find. And if I find everything, then what I'm going to do is go over that with you then on Monday of next week. Tomorrow is a lab day, and it will be a lab day. All right. So if you have everything done through chapter 11, remember 10 and 11, or I think it's 11. What is it? What? Nothing. Let's look one more time here. All right. Your 10 and 11 homework is due this Sunday. All right. And 10 was to do the I know that for the projects, 10 was to do the tic-tac-toe, and 11 was the quarterly sales app. All right. And then also to update your case study. All right, let's go back in here. So we just finished this one. I'm going to do a file and I'm going to do a save all here. I'll leave this open. It's not going to hurt anything. And I want to bring up my add to page. And just like before, first thing I'm going to do in here is I'm going to get rid of everything that's in there. Start from scratch. And this will again be a form, but it's a lot smaller than the last one was. I probably could have copied a bunch of it from the other one. I'm just doing it by hand here. So. Oops. Say hold, not hod. All right, we're going to put a couple divs in here, but before we do, let's just quickly jump back. All right, because now we're doing this. Add things to do. All right, that's the second page. That's the first page of the add trip. And this is the activities page of the add trip. So we're going to put that in right now. Then we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to build and manage stuff that's in here. So. All right, I'm running out of room here, so I'm going to put the last thing on a new line. And I think that's all we need. I don't think there's any options or anything in there. So there's that. And then we need to add our buttons. So let me put this in. I'll leave it up there. And we'll take our break. All right. So why am I still getting that? Invalid expression item. Figure out what it doesn't like here. It came up here when we did this. You big. Oh, we don't have our ending curly brace here. Oh, we don't need it. What am I thinking? Oh. And model, trip view model. title, trip, page 2, that looks good. Add things to do in destination name, that looks good. And that action equals add. Input type equal hidden. Before equal page number, that looks good. Hold down the control key. Select multiple items, that looks good. Activities, control, ASP, items, select list, all activities, activity ID. Oh, I've got 2 commas there. I did not remove the error though. And select classic, dark same. Well, it is giving me an error here, but it is saying that it is an invalid expression term. So it's telling me that someplace in here where I put a semicolon, it doesn't like it. No, those belong there because we are writing C# in there, so that should be there. And I'm looking to see if I've got anything else. Invalid expression term. It's telling me it's in line 1. Add model, trip view model. That is correct. There's one. There's one. That's all there are. All right, I'm going to look during the break. It is 1:03. Let's take till 1:15, so we'll take 12 minutes. And then I'm going to come back and add the last 2 views, and those are for the manage. Okay, we'll put those in after the break. And during that, I'm going to try to see if I can figure out what the heck the problem is here. I do? No, I don't. Oh, that's right. It's got to be commented like this. And asterisk, asterisk, X, file was reached. Oh, so it has to be in the beginning here. All right, it is 1:15. I'm going to finish this up. So far we've done this trip log. We did the add trip. We did the activities page. Now we've got to do the manage page. And for whatever reason, I had an error on here. So what I did to try to fix it, because I wanted to see, I thought the error was up here someplace. So I took all of this code here and commented it out. And as soon as I did, and I clicked up here, that error went away. So I uncommented it, and now the error is gone. So again, to my knowledge, I've got a boatload of warnings in here, but I don't have any errors right now. All right. So I'm going to do a file save all here, and I'm going to go back into here, and there's two more views I have to build. Each of these views is under the manage page. All right, so I'm going to do those right now. The first one is quite extensive. It is the manage index, and it'll be close to 100 lines. All right, the next one after that is the manage confirmation or confirm page, and that's only about 15 lines. So it'll probably take us to our next break, or darn close to it. So again, right now under under manage, we have nothing. So let's go in and let's add a new view. It'll be an empty view, and it will be index.cshtml. And while I'm at it, I'm just going to come in and add the other one. So again, I'm going to add another empty view. And this other one that I add will be called just confirm.cshtml. right? First one we want to do is our index one. So again, I'm going to start by removing everything that's in here. And I'm just going to start typing. As we typically do in here, we're going to start by setting up our title. All right, and our subtitle. And again, this manage destinations, accommodations and activities is this right here. So that's what we just did. All right. And we're going to have to set this up into a 2-column format, as you can see. So we'll do that. All right. And the first column that we add will be everything under here. And then we'll come back and add everything under here. All right. So this will be our first column. As you probably guess, this is going to take up the majority of our stuff. So let's just start putting it in. It'll be again, this is going to be an unordered list. So okay, so that's the first one. And we're actually going to have um, several that are going to look like this. So again, just because I don't want to waste my time or your time watching me type, I'm going to go in and I'm going to copy and I'm going to paste right down below this one. All right, so right under the destination name, I'm going to do the same thing, but it's going to be accommodation. All right, so there's that. But remember, for accommodations, we also have a phone and an email. So again, just so you see this, I'm doing this right now. So we just did the destination. Now we just did the accommodation name. So we're going to add the accommodation phone and the accommodation email. Then we'll add the activity, then our button, and then we'll work on the second column. Okay. All right. Again, I'm going to come in and copy and paste. This will become then accommodation phone. All right. And I'm going to do it one more time. And this will be accommodation email. All right. We're getting there. And then one more time, I'm going to copy, but it's not going to be for the accommodation. So let me copy one more time in here. And this again will be a list group item, form group. This will be for our activity. So this will say activity name and activity here. And this will also be activity name. All right. And then finally, after our unordered list, but before we end our form, we need our button. All right. So what we have done now then is we've added everything that we need to put into that first column. That was our add column. All right. So we're about half done, and then we got to do our delete column. Give you a second to catch up here. And in many ways, this is going to look similar to what we just did. So I am going to grab most everything in here. So I'm going to grab everything up until here, and I'm going to copy that to the clipboard. In fact, we can put a comment in here. You don't have to, of course, but I'm going to put in a comment that says add column. All right. And then right below this, right below the end of that div, but before our final div, we're going to do the other one. All right, I'm going to paste this in, and I'm going to put a comment in there as well. And that second one here, right there, this will say delete column. Okay, let me move all these over a little. All right, so let's see what we have here. So we've got a delete column. We've, excuse me, we've again got our field set. Okay, we've got our legend, but instead of add, we want this to say delete. We're getting errors now because down at the bottom here, we'll need to add our, what do we need? We need our field set down here. And we will need our the ending div down there as well, and the ending form tag. All right, so let's start adding the stuff in here for our delete column. Okay, again, The method won't be add, of course. The method will be delete. I'm sorry, the action will be delete. The method will be post. All right. So what do we have? Group legend is delete, of course. And let me move these over. Yeah, it's a little better. All right, again, we will have that unordered list. Down at the bottom, we will end our unordered list. Okay, all right, and then coming in here, again, we've got a list group item, etc. Label. This will be destination ID. Destination. All right, now look on the screen if you would, please, because, all right, these are all text boxes. Every one of these is a text box. All right, on the other hand, since we're deleting, we want to be able to delete from our groups. So all three of these in the delete, these are all going to be drop down lists. All right, because you have to add things singularly. Okay, but when you delete, you are deleting from groups, or at least potentially you're deleting from groups. All right. So this is going to have to, of course, change a little bit in here. Destination ID. This won't be an input. Let me just get rid of this and keep typing here. I'm going to have to make this smaller so you can read all of it. So give me a second here. So that'll be model. All right. So we move this over. All right. So that'll be that. And inside of there, just going to put, for now, at least it'll be just option. All right. And select and the div and the li. So that's the first one. And again, we're going to then have two more that are going to look very similar to this. So again, I'm going to come down here and I'm going to copy. And then I'm going to paste. And instead of destination, everything like this that we have in here. And this is wrong. This label should be destination ID. There we go. All right, so this will be accommodation ID. And then finally, we'll have to do one more. And that one more will be for our activity. So again, and I think you get this, but we're building this one now. I just finished that one and I copied it to here because it's basically the same setup. Now I'm going to copy this one more time and I'm going to put it in here. Then we just have to set up our button and that'll be it then for this particular file. So let me copy again. All right. And again, this will be activity. All of these, this should be just there like that. Destination ID, accommodation ID, and activity ID. All right. This also should be activity and activity ID. All right. Select model.activities, activity ID and name. All right. And then just like we did up here where we did our button right before we ended the form, I'm going to do the same thing here. Button, classes, submit. All right, same thing, except instead of saying add, it should say delete. End our form, end our field set. All right, end our div, and end our final div. That is everything in this particular file. So file, save all. And let's just do one more file, save all. All right, and I'm going to do the confirm. Like I said, that's 15 lines long, so it won't take very much time. So let's bring up that confirm. I'm going to start again by removing everything that's currently in there. And then we're just going to add our last 15 lines. All right, we're going to set the title here. Capital. Bigger. There we go. Items. Now I can't put a space in between each one of those to make it look a little nicer. And that is it. So I'll leave that up there for a moment. Again, looking in here, I did not notice any, nope. So I've got a boatload of warnings, but I don't have any errors. All right, I'm going to see if I can get rid of those and fix our spelling here. All right, oops, what I did there, I think I hit the home key. There we go. So I'm going to do a file, save all right now. And between now, just for about 5 or 10 minutes, I want to go over what we're going to be doing in chapter 13 next week. All right. So again, what Murach has done in chapter 13 is built an entire application from start to finish. Now, what I just said is a lie because it is start to finish, but yet we'll have to amend something later. Let's take a look. So when we get done with that chapter, notice then we're done with the first 2 sections of the book. So what we have left, and we're skipping chapter 18, we're not using Visual Studio Code for this. So we'll have 14, 15, 16, and 17. As I've already told you, if we can finish chapter 13 next week, and that is my hope, then the week we come back after Easter, so it's the week of the 10th, I will spend probably 2 days on chapter 14, maybe just one, we'll see, and 2 days, possibly just one, on chapter 15. All right. You might have 2 or 3 lab days in that week. I don't know. Then the following week, which is the week of the 17th, we will go through authentication and authorization. In the bookstore website that they're going to have you build right now, it's going to be very similar to what we did in that movie website at the beginning of the semester when we came in and we added authorization and authentication. In other words, anybody can sign up for it. We'll be able to go in and do administrative features. We'll fix that in chapter 16. All right, that's what chapter 16 is about. And then in 17, again, we'll try hopefully to learn how to deploy this thing. So let's take a look at chapter 13. I'm just going to step you through what's in there. All right, we're not going to go through it, but I will tell you, and I know it's Jeff Scott broken record here. You'll have to read this chapter for it to make sense. All right, when I go through and I read the chapter, I usually read it about 4 times. First time I read it, I have my magic marker out, my highlighter, but I don't highlight anything. Then the next time I read it, I highlight it, typically in kind of a pink highlighter. Then I read it again and I highlight it in yellow because I find out that a lot of times when I highlight the first time, I've highlighted way too much, or maybe not enough. Maybe I missed something. Then I typically read and try to really concentrate on the stuff I've highlighted. All right, so with that said, as it says right here, the bookstore website presented in this chapter is a realistic website that uses the skills presented so far in this book. The chapter does not present every line of code in this chapter for the website, but the complete code for the website is available in the download for this book. So I'm hoping we're going to be able to use as much of that as possible. So in other words, and you should all be able to go out and do this. So if I go out to the C drive, this is on my machine. So I've got a Murach folder, and underneath there, I've got my core MVC. Or I do have it, I'm just spelling it wrong. All right. And then under your student download, which you all got under book app, you should be able to go then out to chapter 13, the bookstore. We're going to use as much of this as possible. We're going to then, what I'm recommend that you do is that you make a copy of this and we'll work with the original, but in case we screw it up, we'll have the copy to go back to. All right, that's my recommendation for you. All right. So notice how this is set up. They will first explain the user interface, which we'll look at in a moment. All right. Where they say there are the end user pages, that's what a typical person coming into this bookstore website would see. Then we'll look at the admin pages. Then they will show you how the entire project is set up. All right. Next, they will go over some of this stuff that we went over and maybe too quickly back in chapter 12. So we'll look again at extension methods and what they mean. Then we'll look at the generic query option class and what it means, and the generic repository class and what that means. Then, as you can see, it's broken down next into 4 different areas. So we'll first look at the paging and sorting of the author catalog. All right. And what we're concerned with in there is how this is going to look from the end user's point of view. So as it says, we'll do the user interface and route. Then we'll have this grid data class. And the reason we'll have that, and you'll see it in just a moment, is we'll want to set it up, have it set up so that we can have X number of authors or books on a page, and it'll set it up to do, it will set it up to do pagination for us. All right. So you'll notice these two things look very similar. The user interface and custom route, the abstract grid data. All right. The view model and the author controller, the author list view and the book list view. This one also has here this author, what is it? 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. This one has an abstract grid data class, and then an author did grid data subclass. Then this is a book grid data subclass. Then for the first time, we'll go in and look at cart stuff. All right. And as you see, we'll add some more extension methods. So we'll worry about session and cookies. In other words, we'll want things to be able to persist. As it says there, then the user interface, the model classes, the cart controller, and the cart index view. Finally, we'll go into the admin area, and as you can see, it's very small. Anyone after chapter 13, anyone will be able to go in and do adding authors, adding books, removing authors, removing books, editing authors, editing books. But we will change that up when we get to chapter 16. So to very quickly, and you'll notice it's about 50 pages, a little more, 53 pages, whatever. All right, but as we step through this then, notice this is what it looks like. Now, one thing I'm going to ask you to do, I'm saying this right now, I don't want yours to be called Tuxedo Books. Eventually, I'm going to ask you to modify this. We'll build it like this, like it is. I mean, if John, you could call this John's book, John's House of Books or whatever. But I'd like everyone's to look at least a little bit different on the home page and have that same thing. So come up with your own logo or whatever up here. And notice it's also here. So that's the home page. Now where it says our staff pick, they're literally just running a random function on all the books they have in there. Remember, we have, I think it was 108 books. So it'll right there, it'll be a hyperlink to a random one. So every day or every time you run this, I should say, you could get a different book. Notice up here what we have. We've got our home page, which is here. We've got our books page, which we'll look at next. And then we've got our author page, which we'll look at after that. Again, with this cart, notice what it is. We've got, they go in here, and I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe they use Font Awesome in here to get the cart icon, to get the register icon, and to get the admin icon. All right. And they also use a bootstrap badge in here to show, in this example at least, there's one item in the cart. I believe if there's nothing in the cart, I don't think it says 0. I don't think anything shows. All right. So that's our home page. That's our book catalog page. So notice what we can do in here. All right. We can get a listing of any book, and we're going to try to set this up. I think this is how they do it. So what do we have in here? Titles, authors, genre, and price. All right. And what does that mean? That means if you want to buy this book, you're going to be able to do so by clicking the add to cart. All right. And again, with 108 books, ours, notice they have 8 here, but if we put 4 per page, and we'll just might as well just do what they do, we'll literally have in here 27 pages. 27 times 4 is 108. All right. I know I'm impressing you with my math skills. All right. So they don't, I guess they don't show the author page. It says shown in part 2. So where's that? I don't know. I guess maybe it's on the page following that. There it is. So we can do the same kind of thing. And we have, I believe, it's 78 authors. It's something like that. So we'll have 20 pages down here. All right. And again, notice what we have here. We've got a one-to-many because every one author can have 0, 1, or more books. All right. Then we'll have this manage. And again, this is all the stuff for the admin page. So you can add a book. All right. And I think that's all they show on that. All right, we'll worry about that later. So this, notice in here, we will have 4 controllers. All right, we have right now, we're talking about 3 or 4 tables. Remember, we already have this database set up. We're probably going to go back and we might go back and redo the whole project so we can add admin capability from the get-go. But we will have an author controller, we will have a book controller, a cart controller, and a home controller. All right. And then notice how this is broken up. I'm not going to read all these files to you, but notice under our data layer, a configuration folder. All right. And a repositories folder. That's all under here. So that's all this. And that's under a models folder. Then we've got a domain model. All right. And under the domain model, we first have a DTO, which is a data transfer object. We'll talk more about that in chapter 13. And then we have our authors, our books, our carts, our items that are in our cart, and our genres. Okay. And then over here, these are still things under models. So we will have an extension models, and notice we have a bunch of those, our grid and some stuff there, and finally our view models. All right. Then we've got our views folder. You can, as you can tell, this is going to take some time. And if we can use as much existing code as possible, we're going to be better off. All right. Finally, we've got our admin area. And again, I'm not going to read a thing about it to you other than notice it's under areas, then there's admin, and everything that you see there is under admin. So this is just the stuff that somebody who was granted permission or logged in or whatever as an administrator would see. A quote, typical end user, unquote, wouldn't see any of this. All right. And as it says, and we'll talk more about extension methods. I'm not going to talk a bit about this. We'll talk more about repository methods and classes. All right. And then, as I mentioned, they break it up into 4 different areas. Okay. So they will have the stuff in there for the author's page. You already saw that. And we'll go through all of that. Come on. From the authors, we'll go into books and we'll do similar types of things. All right. From there, we'll go into our shopping cart and we'll do the shopping cart stuff or whatever you want to call it. So here's what our cart would look like. All right. Our data transfer objects is already mentioned. Our cart controller. Our cart index view. And then finally, we'll go into our admin area. All right. We are going to take this, for lack of better words, and this is our admin stuff, but we're going to take this unbelievably slow because I'd like you to be able to see a project from start to finish. Again, we're going to kind of make some changes. We will have to. I'm still working on it myself, but we will make some changes. All right. To that so that it's using our database. But hopefully that's almost the only change we're going to make, that and you having to put your own stamp on it by creating your own logo rather than Tuxedo Books. All right. Now I've talked to Evan. We're having our meeting tomorrow. We meet every Friday. And he wants to have one more hands-on test. That's what he's talked about. In fact, he talked about two. I think I've talked him down to one, but we'll see. And I want to see where he is tomorrow when we have our meeting to see exactly what's going on, where we are, etc. Okay. And I don't know if we do have one more. I don't know if we will have that last one, if we will have it after chapter 13 or after chapter 16. It'll be one or the other. All right. So once I talk to him, I'll have a little better idea. He's talked about writing that test himself and sharing it with me because I wrote the other ones. And I said, well, we can write it together. So I'm just giving you an idea, window into my world, so to speak, so you know what's going on. All right. I am going to go right now. I've already got emails from two of the students that, hey, I turned this in and you didn't grade it. And that's good. That's what I want to see. If I miss something, let me know. But again, please, when you are working on the case study, if you are doing something sports pro, at least, like I said, put a comment on the top of it that's got in there what chapter or chapters it's on, etc. Otherwise, it's just too confusing when I go in and try to grade it. All right, that's all I have. Have a good weekend. I will talk to you on Monday. See you then.